Hello, beautiful masters, and welcome back to our exploration of deep tissue cleansing. And in this and the next 3 videos, we're going to be going really deep into the mental, emotional, spiritual side of healing and elimination and liberation. Because I feel like this is the information that pretty well all healing programs that I've ever seen, and so like this may not be true for all things. I haven't read everything, I haven't seen everything, I don't know everything, but from what I've seen, this is the part that is addressed the least and needs to be addressed the most. Okay, and so why I'm doing this now before we continue our exploration on the 3 detox types and really moving into the tools and combining everything that we know, like putting this whole picture together so you can like put this lifestyle together for yourself so you can start to really detox your body, is because if we don't understand this mental, emotional, spiritual stuff before we get into that, this mental, emotional, spiritual stuff is going to come up, and then we're not going to know why it's happening, and we're not going to know how to move forward. We're going to move backwards. We're not going to know what happened, and this will just turn into another crazy diet. Okay, so again, we have been talking quite a bit about the fact that there's mental, emotional, spiritual reasons for why we're all suffering the way that we're suffering, why we're all living the way that we're living, why we're all in the state that we're in. Now, again, most of us don't understand and don't realize that our suffering has become a part of our identity, that it has become a part of who we are. It has become a part of what we believe ourselves to be. And we kind of have to look at it like how we look at the toxins in the body. Yes? That our suffering, our disease, our mental, emotional anguish, our anxiety, our depression, our racing thoughts, any physical symptom that we have, our weight, too high, too low, whatever it is that we're struggling with in life, that we're looking to liberate ourselves from, right? This literally can even be, I can never get my shit together in my work and I'm always feeling like I'm not living my purpose. I can't find my creativity. I can't find the right relationship. I'm always in a mess with money. My relationships with my family and my friends are all messed up. All this stuff, whatever it is that is our point of contention in our lives, where we really are thinking, right, if I could just get this part of my life sorted, I'd be happy. If I could just figure this part of my reality out, most of my problems would go away. Because look, so many of my problems are predicated on this root issue. And so like I say, this root issue has become a part of our identity. And like I said, we kind of have to look at it like how the toxins are in our bodies, yeah? They are a part of us. They are a part of our journey. They are a part of what has challenged us and what is calling us to awaken to whole new levels of reality and self-awareness and reality awareness that wouldn't happen had we not faced these challenges that we've had. However, when we over-identify, which all of us have done, okay, and you know, I also want to say that we over-identify with these things for good reasons, and we're going to get into this in the next video. But we really have taken on our sicknesses, our diseases, our anguish, our pain, our suffering as a part of our identity. Because again, in order to really live it out, and in order to really work it out, and in order to really learn what we need to learn from it, if we hadn't identified with it so hard and so strong as being like who and what we are, I don't think that we would be able to process it the way that we're meant to process it, okay? So the next thing that I just want to say as we get into this is to understand that no matter how much we might look at ourselves and say, no, I want to heal. I want this thing that's so painful in my life to go away. I don't want any more of my self-sabotaging behaviors. I don't want any more of my sickness. I don't want any more of my disease. I really want to get this under control and I don't want to have this anymore. As much as we believe that and we want to think that that is true, it isn't true. There are parts of us that do not want to get better, that do not want to heal, that do not want to grow, that do not want to change, that do not want to let go of our diseases, mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, all of these levels, because They are coping mechanisms. Okay? So as we start to really get into this work, we are going to see that so much of the disease state that we have manifested in our bodies, okay, and this is where it gets a little bit metaphysical, is not just because we were exposed to a specific type of toxin and that's how it went for us. Because if that were the case, we would think that most people would be expressing disease and malfunction in similar ways to each other. But we can see that in our world, we have such a plethora of ways of manifesting disease, self-sabotaging behaviors, ways in which we hurt ourselves, and ways in which it seems that we are coping with the toxicity that is in our world. And we kind of have to look at that and say there's a reason for the variation. All right? There's a reason for the variation. There's a reason we don't all manifest disease in the same way. And like some people are more prone to it being mental, emotional. Some people are more prone to it being physical. And then even in the physical, right? Some people are prone to head issues, headaches. Some people have gut issues, skin issues, neurological issues. It seems to be so different for everybody. And again, we have to recognize that on all levels, disease is a coping mechanism. Physically, it's a coping mechanism so that your body doesn't have to shut down and die. That is the main reason we get disease. The body is coping with the toxic environment, the environment that's not in alignment with something that would foster its growth. Yes, its perfect expression. And this is how the body's adapting. Okay? We develop disease as an adaptation. And now we need to start to look at this deeper as well, because it's not just physically that we have adapted. And as we go in the next couple of videos, we're going to see that the physical adaptations we have made, the physical diseases we have, the mental, emotional diseases we have, again, are going to be direct reflections of the adaptations we are making in our expression of our true self. Yes, they're perfect reflections of the adaptations we have made in the expression of our true self in order to fit into society, okay? So the main root of all of this disease state in a lot of ways, yes, and even in the creation of the toxicity that we have done has absolutely been exploration in all of these things. But now we also have to look at, okay, the society and the way that we are thinking and the way that we are believing and what society believes, as in what culture, what humanity at this point in its evolution believes about connection and survival and thriving, that is out of alignment with the truth. Okay? So the first thing that we need to understand is that as a humanity, we have correlated sameness with safety and survival. All right? So from way back in human history, when we were in different tribes and we had little contact with each other, and we started to migrate out of the jungle and we started to interact as tribes and all of these things started to happen. First thing that we need to understand is that due to the fact that we were all like different tribes and different cultures were living in different environments and having different experiences. When these tribes and cultures met up for the first time, there was going to be an exchange of pathogen, an exchange of, like I just said, pathogen, an exchange of the microbiome that for early humans that were just interacting with each other would literally be a life and death situation. That when different tribes would come and meet up with each other, there would be a very high possibility that your entire tribe was going to get wiped out by being introduced to a pathogen from this other tribe that your bodies had no adaptation for and therefore took you completely out. So this kind of like visceral disgust or rejection or fear of the other that we seem to still carry around as a humanity, even though we have all this, we're all one, we're not that different, look at how the same we are, we have different colors of skin, but it's all blah, blah, blah. There is a biological root of, like I say, this lineage where a long, long time ago, when your tribe was introduced to a tribe that was different than yours, there was a high possibility that everyone you knew and possibly yourself was going to die because of that. And so we kind of just have to first understand that, yes, humanity is trying to move forward, and we are trying to understand that we're not that different from one another, and we can start to be different in the society and be different from one another, and that doesn't mean threat. But there's still a very deep core visceral memory of this otherness equaling scary to me. And even with that, right, then moving forward throughout history, we would be fighting for resources. The other tribe was against us and we were against them, and there was this deep understanding that there wasn't enough, and that some people wanted more than their fair share, and all of these things started to happen, right? And groups of people were completely enslaved and taken over and not given their fair share of life based on other groups of people taking from them what was not theirs to take. And now we're even still living in this very unequal, unfair world, much of which has been created by humans wanting more for themselves, because the second false belief that we have is this fear of lack, this fear of not having enough for me and mine, and the more I can accumulate, the better, no matter how much that takes away from other people. So we have this very deep sense of, if you're different from me, you are a threat to me, you are going to hurt me in some way, you are going to hinder my chances of survival and hinder my chances of having that which I desire to have. And we have this in our lineage as a humanity, because this has been how we've been for pretty much all of humanity. We've attacked each other, we've taken advantage of each other, there's been genocide, there's been war, there's been, like I say, sharing of diseases that wiped out entire tribes. There's been so much trauma from this looking at each other and seeing difference, and what that has created, that in our culture today, being the same, being predictable, being someone that everyone around you in your specific culture can understand and predict, is akin to getting love and acceptance, because we only feel safe enough to give love and acceptance to that which we recognize, right? Any other time, there's going to be this like deep sense in us that, right, even if we're completely developing ourselves spiritually, mentally, emotionally, we're doing all this stuff to try and become more awake and aware, conscious individuals who are capable of seeing the other as the self. This is very difficult work. And when we turn that in on ourselves, all right, so not only are we working to try to see others as ourselves and be more inclusive and be more loving and all of these things, we still have to realize that in our society and in our culture, different equals you're not going to be connected with, right? Because people are going to see you as a threat. Even in the health and wellness and spirituality fields, there's still, if you don't believe in my specific guru or my specific way of doing spirituality or my specific way of processing or what I believe to be the truth about the universe, there's fighting, there's squabbling. In every eating group, there's like all these different denominations and separations. Within all religion, within all political parties, we're still looking for how can we find this sameness where we all agree on the same thing. And if we have differences in opinions and we have differences in the way that we see things and the way that we do things, that is a threat. Yes? So we as people are still looking to fit in to the culture and the society that we were born into, to the family we were born into on one hand. There's a part of us that just wants to fit in and to be what the culture wants us to be so that we can get love and acceptance. Okay? That part of us is warring with the part of us that knows that we are not that we are each a unique individual here to express in a unique way, who is not going to be predictable, who's never going to perfectly fit into anything. And at the same time, we want that. We don't want to be homogenous. We don't want to be invisible. We want to express our true selves. We want to be able to be who we truly are. And so with these two things, yes, these two warring ideologies that are within each and every single one of us, we were all born a unique individual into a family that didn't understand us, into a world that doesn't understand us, because the world doesn't understand itself. The humanity doesn't understand itself. We still, as a humanity, believe that sameness is the key, that difference is what makes things scary, that difference is a threat. And then again, at the same time, we're starting to understand that if each one of us is a unique fractal, unique individual, there's like a little spark in some of us that we can see that, well, you know, if everyone were allowed to express how they express, if we stopped trying to homogenize everyone and get everyone to fit in, all the roles of society and all the roles of humanity would actually get filled. And it's part of the fact that, again, we have placed certain value on certain things, and we're going to talk about this more in the next video. We've placed certain value on things above other things. We've made these societal rules. Why? Because we were trying to create structure. We were trying to create sameness. We were trying to create the rules for people to fit into so that we could operate in these bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger tribes. Yes, the little tribe became the city, became the town, became the city, became the nation. Now we're moving into global society, and our brains are kind of like chickens in that we're not able to like keep track of the pecking order. We're having such a hard time putting everyone in their place and all of these things because, again, our view of society is so messed up in that like sameness and predictability is what makes it safe, and yet we're trying to understand and cope with this massively expanding circle of people we have to keep track of when we still see each other as threat and sameness as good. So our brains are getting a little exploded in this, yes? And so like I say, in our way of expressing, we're all coping. We're all trying to be on one level what society wants us to be, what our culture wants us to be, what our parents, what our caregivers, what our generalized other wanted us to be, so that we can get this external love and not get resources cut off from ourselves. And at the same time, we know and we're starting to feel, and the more kind of privileged or having your material needs met you are in your life, the more this is going to be a thing for you. The more your material needs were met, the more you had just kind of like that base foundation of things being physically okay for you, the more the mental, emotional, and spiritual anguish of you not being able to be yourself is going to be pronounced, okay? You're going to have more and more and more of this inner conflict. And again, your body and your mind and your spirit and your emotions are all working with this discombobulated mess of needing to fit in but wanting to be your individual self, and how counter to everything that is. And this just core root feeling that love comes from being accepted in the tribe. Being accepted in the tribe comes from sameness and comes from predictability and comes from being what the people around you want you to be. But noticing that your capacity to connect when you are denying and repressing who you are is completely diminished, because again, the only way to connect is to be your true self and to be your authentic self. But then you bring out your true and authentic self and people reject that. So it feels like we can't get connection anywhere. And so we're coping. We have diseases, we have mental, emotional, spiritual stuff that we all have as our coping mechanisms for this paradox that's going on inside of us. Okay, so this is just the foundational understanding that all of how humanity works here, and we're going to get into it more in the next videos. So just start to think about that, and we'll see you next.